light badges before I start getting into campaigns. That sounds very futuristic. Mosquito going by the microphone. Hey there. Alright, we got to level 3. I think what I'll do is I'll start from square 1, because I do want to kind of set a score here. For anybody that hasn't played this, the whole point is to get through the course in X amount of time. And doing so gets you to...
Is X-Wing the stuffy flight simulator that just happens to wear a Jedi robe? Or is it a full-throttle power fantasy that cannonballs straight through the Death Star exhaust port? Don't play coy. We already know the correct answer is yes to both, and crank the John Williams to 11. When LucasArts unleashed the game on DOS in February 1993, most home computers still greeted you with a blinking C-colon like a disapproving protocol droid. X-Wing burst in, polygon wings splayed, sound blaster horns blaring, and said, "Move over, spreadsheets. We're posting Proton torpedoes today." Underrated or overrated? Hyper-rated. Simultaneously a foundational monument for space combat and a baptism by turbo laser that bounced less dedicated players off the trench wall faster than you can say, stay on target. Fundamental or disposable? Picture a timeline where Wing Commander never learned energy management and Star Fox never discovered aileron rolls. Terrifying, right? That's why X-Wing is still the reason your joystick has that shiny dent in the trigger. 3 decades on, it hasn't relinquished air superiority over the genre. Historical context. By 1993, LucasArts' reputation rested on point-and-click quip machines. The Secret of Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max, games that turned pixel hunting into an art form. In the back corner of Skywalker Ranch, however, flight sim veteran Lawrence Holland and a skunkworks satellite called Totally Games were plotting something with fewer rubber chicken gags and more shield divert macros. Holland's resume read like a war museum catalog. Battlehawks 1942, Their Finest Hour, Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, all historical dogfight sims that cared more about airspeed indicators than about space wizards. The team's pitch to LucasArts brass was elegant. Transplant that physics pedigree into the Star Wars universe, plug in the iMUSE dynamic score engine, and let players experience Rebel Alliance survival training without leaving their 486 tower. The gamble hit shelves mid-February, direct mail orders, and early March, brick and mortar, packaged in a hefty box stuffed with 15 3.5-inch floppies and a 96-page novella, the Farlander Papers, which doubled as lore bible and copy protection decoy. Each disc bore a red rebel crest that felt conspiratorial just removing from its sleeve. I was a cash-strapped 14-year-old prowling a Massachusetts Babbage's when the demo looped on a beige VGA monitor, promising true 3D polygon dogfights in friendly green text. The clerk swore you needed 4 megabytes of RAM to hear the music change when you bank. My wallet screamed, but the minute the demo's soundtrack swelled with brass as an on-screen A-wing corkscrewed, I knew 2 Saturday lawn mowings were about to fund the rebellion. Computer culture of the day looked like a trench run of its own. Origin Systems had crowned Wing Commander 2 as the sprite-scaling emperor. Its pilot portraits delivered prime soap opera camp, but ships were still cardboard cutouts pivoting toward camera. Console kids were busy guiding a polygonal fox through Super FX corridors on Super Nintendo, but PC purists scoffed, clutching flight sticks that resembled repurposed dental drills. In that climate, X-Wing's filled polygon models felt impossibly high-tech. No texture maps yet, but enough flat-shaded real estate to make every interceptor silhouette instantly recognizable. Installing the thing was its own rite of passage. Swap disk 7, cross fingers, type install again, set the Sound Blaster address to 220 IRQ5, DMA1. Then the iMUSE sound engine would handshake with your card and literally recalibrate John Williams' score on every throttle push. LucasArts' adventure games had used iMUSE to cross-fade between island themes. X-Wing used it so cockpit horns crescendoed each time you flicked lasers to double front. It was the moment PC gaming stopped mimicking cinema and started co-directing it. Mechanics boot into the intro and the absurd through line emerges instantly. Your onboard astromech. The manual never names the R2 unit. Let's call him Beep Boop, nags whenever you let shields drift below optimum. That digital chastisement becomes the drumbeat of the entire campaign, a sarcastic cricket poking holes in your bravado. Shield energy low, he chirps like a judgmental Fitbit seconds before an eyeball-shaped fighter squeezes a green bolt through your transfer steel. The base game divides into 3 tours of duty, a new ally, first strike, and the Death Star operations, with each tour structured like an officer training montage. You start in the pilot proving grounds, threading time trial hoops, and buzzing drone ties around a giant rebel crest. Fail to scrape the gate and you'll watch that crest enlarge in your viewport until the words "terminated by collision" appear in shameful System 3 font pass, and you graduate to live fire sorties that scale from cargo container inspections to full-scale Star Destroyer raids. Optional secondary goals: inspect all freighters, prevent escape of Lambda shuttle, capture Imperial Ace Marek Stele, dangle bonus medals. Some missions hide tertiary requirements so arcane they feel like FMV Easter eggs. Yes, you can trigger a secret audio sting of Akbar barking. Well done if you nail every probe in Mission 6 under 3 minutes. Flight itself runs on 3 resource columns: engines, lasers, shields, like a holy trinity of cockpit anxiety. Sacrifice engine juice for weapons and your top speed drops, but bursts become lethal. Push everything to engines and watch beep boop scream an octave higher as shields fizzle. Half the fun is mid-dogfight triage. You're barrel rolling behind a TIE bomber. Notice torpedoes 0. Flick Shift F10 to dump shield power into lasers just long enough to fish 1 bomber. Then hammer Shift F9 to restore shields before a stray turret ping rattles your canopy. It's part resource puzzler, part hot rod tuning session, and still the cleanest dramatization of war is math a Star Wars game has pulled off. Imagine classic Wing Commander, cinematic but forgiving, akin to piloting through wet cement. Now imagine Elite, physically honest but bereft of orchestrated flair, a silent vacuum of starfield tiles. X-Wing splits the difference. Momentum halts alarmingly fast. Space break physics so arcade you can smell the quarter slot. Yet energy and shield vectors lend decisions the heft of sim bureaucracy. The comparison that always kills me: X-Wing has more loadout toggles than a 3.5 ED and D Monk has stance options, yet manages to be legible to kids who could barely configure Memmaker. Let's unpack one early sortie. To this day, my litmus test for whether a friend gets the game: mission, disable and capture M-class shuttle delivering stolen X-Wing schematics to an Imperial listening post. Step 1, power down lasers to trickle, surge shields rear, nose toward radio silence buoy. 3 TIE fighters emerge, fly casual until scan completes, then double front shields, overcharge lasers, throttle to 80, crank pitch, and let inertial dampers fake real space dogfighting across a background of static star voxels. Whether you pull that off on the first try depends on reading cockpit telemetry as fluently as you read your car dashboard. Except now your sedan can literally stall because you pressed the wrong generator hotkey. Controller choice matters. Yes, there's keyboard plus mouse, but that's like steering a rally car with a fork and butter knife. Plug in a CH Flight Stick Pro, assign hat switch to target nearest enemy, and watch tracking reticles glide like a third-person ghost projecting your future kill trajectory. In the early 90s, that muscle memory felt revelatory, digital body language that turned PC chairs into faux leather pilot seats. Sound remains an unsung star. Every time your X-Wing's shields are redistributed, iMUSE modulates horns to a minor key. Proton torpedo lock triggers a 3-note motif that parallels Luke's bullseyeing of womp rats. Laser impacts stutter strings, then fade into brass fanfare once the target blossoms in fractal explosion shards. A chunky sprite script that somehow conveys Metallica-level catharsis with 10 frames of gray debris. Because this is Mark Normandan style confession hour, I must mention the ultimate in-home myth. Aligning a torpedo into the Death Star's exhaust port during the Tortha 3 finale produces a different musical climax if your shield rating is under 15%. My neighbor's cousin swore it existed. So far, no decompilation or GOG version has unearthed that alternate track, but try telling 14-year-olds with an adrenaline high that their ears lied. They did, but the rumor persists like a swarm of Minox. Legacy and influence. Within 12 months, X-Wing moved roughly 500,000 floppy and CD-ROM units. No small feat when owning 4 megabytes of RAM was a flex. Critics showered it with Game of the Year ribbons, normally reserved for text parser darlings. LucasArts, smelling victory, greenlit TIE Fighter the very next year, sanding every sharp edge and letting players serve the Emperor with cackling glee. But even that sleek sequel rides shotgun to X-Wing's prototype audacity. Mechanically, its power-diverted trimeter birthed an entire genealogy. Freespace 2 borrowed it wholesale, EVE Online adapted capacitor juggling from its shield laser dance, FTL literalized the conceit into crew micromanagement panels, and even Battlefront 2, 2017, eventually patched in a simplified heat overload system that designers cited as X-Wing inspired. iMUSE's score scripting became the backbone of Dark Forces, Grim Fandango, and Knights of the Old Republic, cementing dynamic music as LucasArts' brand before middleware like FMOD made it commonplace. Unlike many early 90s PC hits, X-Wing escaped abandonment. LucasArts refreshed it in 1994 with a voiced CD-ROM upgrade and again in 1998 via the Collector Series, adding Gura Lit models, Windows 9 X installers, and joystick force feedback support. Yet it never mainstreamed beyond the faithful, mainly because its onboarding remained as brusque as an Imperial customs officer. Freespace taught people to roll while autopilot soared. Homeworld let mice command entire armadas in ballet formation. X-Wing stuck to its guns. You will learn every F key by heart or you will explode. And that's precisely why it endures. The modern Star Wars Squadrons 2020 leans heavily on Holland's blueprint. Surge power between lasers, shields, and engines using identical radial HUD icons. Veteran reviewers couldn't resist the spiritual successor to X-Wing headlines because the DNA was unmistakable. Meanwhile, fan communities still craft in-engine recreation mods. Shout out to the XWVM X-Wing Virtual Machine project that reverse engineers the floppy binaries, swaps DOS extenders for SDL, and lets widescreen monitors do what CRTs only dreamed. Let's sprinkle in an esoteric footnote. Early preview builds shipped to journalists featured alternate call signs scribbled in configuration INI files. Red 9, Gray 5, Gold 6, names never used in final voiceover. Preservationists discovered them decades later, pulling unused chatter lines from raw audio. Those voices resurface in fan campaigns as cameo bigwigs. Talk about a second life pulled from the guts of 22 kHz .voc files. Closing paragraph plus score 3 decades on. Firing up X-Wing in DOSBox feels like discovering a perfectly preserved snowspeeder under carbonite. Sure, it creaks, the seatbelts are pure ASCII, but shove the throttle and it roars with the same righteous optimism that trumpeted through that Babbage's display in 1993. You'll wrestle with IRQ emulation, map ALTC to center view, and curse the lack of a mini-map. But once iMUSE shifts into triumphant brass because you finally threaded a torpedo between two ties and an overpriced shield generator, you'll remember why you gave up an entire Saturday afternoon to lawn work for those floppies. We talk about games aging gracefully. X-Wing refuses to age at all, like a Jedi ghost haunting our collective GPU cache. Does it obey Newtonian inertia? Not a chance. Does it still deliver the best cockpit math puzzle this side of a Tatooine power converter? Absolutely. Final verdict, 9 out of 10. Strap in, lock S-foils, and may your joystick dead zone stay forever negligible.